Greetings, my guzzlers. I'm missing a drink. Well, it's lunchtime, okay? And we're going to make a soup. Now, as it happens, this is possibly the hottest day of the year so far in the UK. Probably going to hit 36. Feels like more than that in here. So we're going to have a nice soup. Now, it's a Korean soup. And actually, a soup is not necessarily a bad idea when it's hot, because it encourages you to sweat and therefore helps cool you down. But anyway, regardless of that, we're doing a Korean chicken soup, Dakgomtang, or rather, we're doing a simplified version of Dakgomtang. Now, this soup requires quite minimal ingredients. If you're doing it properly from scratch, you want one whole uncooked chicken and then a pan big enough to submerge it completely in water. And then we're going to add some onion, some garlic, some root ginger, and some spring onions. We only had just recently had these. Dirty they are. Don't think we've ever had dirty, as dirty as that. But anyway, they'll get a wash in a minute. And spring onions. And a bit of salt. However, we're making it simpler. I've got some cooked chicken breast here. Okay. And therefore, I can't make a chicken stock from the whole carcass, whole chicken, and the bones afterwards. So I'm using a chicken stock cube, which I've just mixed up with some water. Now, you're going to want enough liquid so that you can divide this up into the number of soup plates you want. Okay. So I've got a stock cube. Well, it's not a stock cube. This is a stock pot. You can use a stock cube. It doesn't matter. In there with some water. And then all we're going to do is we're going to put in the vegetable bits, but obviously not the chicken. So I'm just going to wash these spring onions off. Now, this is from Manchi. I've used their recipes before, and she hadn't actually posted for a little while, but this came up and I thought, oh, this looks good. So I'm going to make this. Now, what you want to do, she uses about a medium to large orange onion. Okay. All we want to do with them is peel them and chuck them like that in there. Okay. Now, interestingly, of course, obviously, if you make the stock yourself, the stock will come out very pale in colour. But normally when you use a stock cube, or like in this case a stock pot, it's brown. And the reason being is simply, just make sure I don't get that mixed in there with that peel, is simply that when they make the stock cubes or whatever, they tend to roast the bones, and that gets the old sort of caramelisation, the Maillard reaction going, hence the colouring. And it's done just to enhance the flavour. Okay. Because it did worry me a little bit, because I thought, that's going to end up being a little bit of a dark soup, but it don't matter. Right, so they go in there, and then you're going to want some fresh root ginger. I've got some frozen one here. It's been out about 5 minutes, and it's already almost defrosted. Okay, so I'm just going to get the peel off, and then all we want to do with this is just slice it, just to increase that surface area, and chuck that in there without the peel. It doesn't matter, to be honest, because we're going to strain this. So I'm just going to clear some of this area and get some, about half a dozen or so garlic cloves peeled. You don't need to crush them. Garlic's done. I'm now just going to put this on because we now want to heat this up. And there's all the garlic, and that's just going in like that. Now, when she did her spring onion, she had this like massive spring onion, which I think is typical from where she gets her onions. She said if you haven't got them, use just all these ordinary size spring onions. So all she did was folded them up just so, like, I did chop the roots off, but I haven't bothered by trimming the green. And we're just now going to put that in there, and we're now just going to bring this to the boil, and then we're going to let it simmer. Get under there, your garlic clove sitting on top of the onion. We're just going to let that then simmer for about 30 minutes. If you were doing this with the chicken, you'd put the whole chicken in there, everything else that I'll put in there other than the stock cube, obviously. And then you're going to boil that chicken for about 40 minutes until the chicken is cooked. We lift the chicken out along with most of these other little bits that you can get out, even the big bits. And then you'd put the bones back in, and you'd give it another 30 to 40 minutes to extract more from the bones. And then we strain it, and that's our broth done. But we're bypassing all that because we've cooked our chicken. So I'm using chicken stock. So I'm just going to give this about 30 minutes to help that veg and everything else flavour that. Now I've kept back 3 spring onions, and we're going to use these for garnish. I'm going to trim some of this green off. Don't like the look of that bit. Take that whole bit off. And we're just going to thin this slightly, and then that will be used to flavour or garnish the soup. Now, she did it with a variety of accompaniments. We're not doing that, we're just doing the soup. But also, another optional thing is, go on the floor, you little shit. You can do it with rice. And in the bottom of the soup bowl, she added some rice, but that is purely optional. And then you build your soup up on top of that. We're not doing that. Okay, we're just going to soup as it is. So essentially it's just going to be chicken with the chicken broth or soup or whatever you want to call it. And it's not a thick soup, it's just a thin soup. And then we're just going to sprinkle some spring onions on top. And like I say, she served it with various accompaniment, various sort of like pickle type things that she makes. She uses some gochujang paste, or makes up like a sort of semi paste type thing with that and other stuff. So you can actually make it part of a bigger meal if you wish. So the only other thing I need to do is, when she does it with the whole chicken, she separates the white meat and the dark meat, okay, and shreds the white meat into the bowl. I can't remember for the life of me whether she actually used any of the brown meat in this or not, but anyway, we've just got chicken breast already cooked. So all I've got to do is just remove the skin and shred it up, and then that will be ready to go. So the garnish is done. That's not quite at the boil yet, so I might have to restart the timer. Just have a little quick clean, and then we're going to do that chicken. I'm just peeling off that skin and then just shredding this into a bowl for now, because of the heat in here. As soon as this is done, this will just sit in the fridge until we're ready to go. So in a way, this is no different to how she did it. She cooked all the chicken, stripped the chicken, the meat off the bones, put that to one side. Then, like I say, she cooked the bones for a bit longer in that soup or stock or broth or whatever you want to call it. And then she added that hot broth to the meat. So that's just about done. I've got a spare chicken breast there. I think that's be more than enough for the two of us. So now we're just waiting on this to cook. Right, that's simmered enough. So I'm going to turn the heat off, And what we want to do is get all the big stuff out. Actually, probably better with a ladle, to be honest. I have got my strainer with a cloth in there. To be honest, I think the cloth in this case is a bit of overkill. I think if you were using a whole chicken, you might find there's other bits in there you want to get out. You want a nice clear broth. Actually, I'm going to have to... My onion's broken up, but some of it hasn't, and I won't be able to pick that up with this. Garlic's all nice and soft, but we're not leaving that in there. So let me just fish out... I shouldn't have used a metal bowl for that, should I? And then we're just going to chuck the rest through that sieve. So I know these are rather large bowls, but my other bowls are a bit on the small side. So I've laid the chicken in there. If you're having rice, put the chicken rice on the bottom, chicken on top. And then all we simply want to do is pour over this nice clear chicken or broth. Whoops, he says spilling it all down the side. So let me just quickly wipe that bottom. So there we have it, swimming in there. You can add more broth if you wish, and then simply take some of those chopped spring onions, put them over the top, and there is your bowl of Korean chicken soup, Dakgomtang. Okay, now that chicken was obviously quite cold, the broth was really hot, but let's just see what it's like. So I've got a bit of broth, got a bit of onion, and I've got a bit of chicken. Overridingly is chicken. Okay, getting a little bit of garlic, not could probably put more in, a little bit of ginger, again I think could have put a little bit more in if you wanted. But at the end of the day, it is just chicken soup. So there you go, your Korean chicken soup on the hottest day of June 2020.